Saturday has come at last, and so has Soundtrack Saturday! I'm pumped for this one because Pikmin 2 was not a game I thought I'd actually be doing a soundtrack breakdown on, but honestly, I love its music so much. Pikmin 2 is you controlling both Captain Olimar and Louie, Olimar's high-key, worthless companion, as they traverse planet PNF 404, looking for treasures to pay down the insane debt their company, Hokatare Freight, is in. They search the landscape and explore tons of caves to find these treasures, and let me tell you, the music is just so great. Before I start my list though, I do want to point out a couple things about Pikmin 2's music. Almost all the tracks are dynamic, varying in intensity, instrumentation, register, and rhythm. These changes can be brought on by a number of factors, including Pikmin tasks, combat, being near a treasure, the condition of the captains, and even time of day. The transitions are seamless, and the music being this dynamic is for the sake of always perfectly augmenting the current environment you're in. Long story short, the soundtrack is amazing! So let me show you. The Awakening Wood is the second overworld area you can uncover in your exploration. The wood is currently experiencing spring, which explains the constantly falling cherry blossoms in the grassy landscape. The music is upbeat in a way that encourages exploration, particularly through its use of horns. The song moves at a steady pace and doesn't suggest any sort of danger is ever present here. Granted, some of the caves you can uncover here aren't exactly easy, but the worst you have to contend with above ground is a burrowing snagret. The Awakening Wood is also arguably the best place to cultivate new Pikmin. It's got plenty of pellet posies and easily defeated enemies you can use in cultivation, which only furthers the music's suggestion of a safe exploration. The Perplexing Pool is the third above-ground area you can explore. Being the most aquatic area in the game, the area features multiple lakes surrounding the central landmass. It's so aquatic that 2 of the caves are submerged in water. The Perplexing Pool represents summer, a relaxing and rejuvenating summer, to be exact. The music, at its core, is best described as ethereal and mystic. It almost sounds like it's being played at a distance. The only instrument really keeping it anchored is the rather hard playing of piano, and I do mean a hard playing of the piano. Compared to every other sound in the track, the piano almost sounds out of place. The music represents the area perfectly. The first time you come here, none of the caves are accessible to you, as one is behind an electrified barrier and the other 3 all require the use of blue Pikmin to even get to them. Additionally, the enemies in the pool are all both freakish and dangerous, from the red-eyed wallywogs to the slug, snail, spilled yogurt-looking toady bloisters. It's as though the music is doing its best to remain neutral but can't help but hint at something off around here. Fittingly, Green Yards plays over cave sublevels that are themed like oddly sunny yards, seeing as you are underground. The song has minimal percussion going on. This tends to be a common theme in underground sublevels. The relatively little percussion suggests that you're somewhere with less going on than if you were, say, in the above ground areas, which have themes with more structure to them. Green Yards' melody, which seems to be played by a synthesized violin, is rather upbeat though. It still encourages exploration, while simultaneously alluding to the stark difference between above and below ground. All of this is not to say that Yard sublevels are always tame. There's a Yard sublevel in the hardest cave in the game, and it is not a walk in the park. And remember how I said most tracks have varying versions for different situations? The enemy and combat mixes will quickly let you know that you are in immediate and great danger. Frontier Cavern is actually the name of a cave, meaning this cave has its own individual theme. But it isn't played on every sublevel, since the cave still has sublevels of various environmental themes. The music doesn't adhere to any sublevel theme in particular, so it doesn't have the task of alluding to an environment. Instead, it's purely a mood setter. At the song's core, it's only 3 instruments, meaning it still follows a sublevel theme of being relatively simple. It's a very curious sounding piece and reflects the Pikmin and the captains very well. After all, the Pikmin and the captains are minuscule, and doesn't this music go perfectly with small characters? Heck, even when you're up against enemies and the music changes to reflect it, the 3 bass instruments are all still clearly heard beneath the added noises. This is ironic, given the Frontier Cavern isn't a necessarily easy cave to traverse, but it gets an A+ for illustrating the curiosity and exploration so well. I love the shower room music so much, simply because it's the theme of a cave, also called the shower room, with a shower theme. No, I'm not kidding, it's literally a whole underground abandoned shower room. It's hilarious. The music also sticks to the shower theme by including the constant sounds of dripping water. In fact, it sounds exactly like when the shower hasn't been off for too long and there are those leftover droplets of water coming out the shower head every couple of seconds. You know what I'm talking about. Still, keeping with the concept of minimal percussion, unless you're fighting an enemy or having the Pikmin carry out a task, the percussion is the dripping water sound. The combat version, in stark contrast, is chaotic. It adds on the use of a metallic-sounding drum set to really accentuate the fact that you are in grave danger. And that's perfect, because the shower room features the likes of the lesser and graded spotted jelly floats, hermit chromads, and the ranging Bloister as the boss. Good times. Oh, speaking of jelly floats, Jelly Float Pool is a melancholic piece that also shows up in the shower room cave, as well as the sublevels of some other caves. It doesn't have any percussion in its basal form. The only version that does is the combat version. The track also moves slower than a lot of the songs in the soundtrack, which I attribute to its namesake, the jelly float. Jelly floats are basically spotted flying jellyfish that come in 2 flavors, lesser spotted and greater spotted. Both float around while emitting a magical noise that I can't really describe to you, and vacuum their prey off the ground. Lesser spotted jelly floats are smaller, blue, and suck up Pikmin for consumption. Greater spotted jelly floats are larger, pink, and suck up captains. They're slow, they're freaky, they sound kinda sad, and they do their song proud. Before I say anything music related, I want it on record that I hate this cave with a burning passion that will prevail long after I die. Yes, I will explain. The submerged castle is submerged. That's important. It being entirely surrounded by water means you can only enter it with blue Pikmin. There's nothing wrong with blue Pikmin, except there are other hazards in the cave that blue Pikmin cannot handle. But that's fine, because you can find Bulbmin here. For those who aren't aware, Bulbmin are medium-sized Bulborbs who have been taken over by parasite Pikmin and can join your team while in the cave. That's not even the issue here. The issue is that if you spend more than 5 minutes on any of the 4 non-boss sublevels, the boss itself will appear on the floor with the sole mission of killing you and your Pikmin. The boss being the Water Wraith. Sweet baby Jesus. No, I don't know what it is. Nobody does. Your supposedly intelligent rocket companion says its corporeal form is anchored in another dimension. It's a water ghost, and its weakness, purple Pikmin. You know what you can't bring in here? Purple Pikmin. You have to survive to the 5th level to get purple Pikmin and defeat this monstrosity. That's why the music sounds haunted, sad, and creepy, because the whole cave is haunted by whatever this thing is supposed to be. It isn't dynamic like other songs, it stays the same no matter what's going on, which means you're always being terrorized with dread, and I hate it. Next song. The Wispful Wild is the 4th and last above-ground area you unlock in the game. The area is very obviously experiencing fall while you're there, as everything is covered in red, yellow, and orange leaves. The Wispful Wild is home to the hardest caves in the game, but isn't exactly a peach to traverse in its own right. It's overrun with stronger enemies, including my favorite enemy, the Gatling Groink. Yes, it's a fish with legs and a gun in its mouth. I am unashamed of my choice. The basal version of this song already doesn't sound particularly welcoming. It's not as outright threatening sounding as some of the combat music you hear in caves, but it does let you know that something is very off about this place. It still gives the impression that exploring is encouraged, but it's more like explore at your own risk. Task and combat music only takes that feeling of extreme caution up a couple notches. The task version says, break that gate down at your own risk, and the combat music says, fight that enemy at your own risk because you're probably being tracked down by the Groink while you fight. It's unnerving, but that's a good thing, because it's not wrong. Mystic March plays in sublevels of later, and therefore harder, caves in the game. It doesn't attach itself to any particular environment, but it does associate with frustration. When you start a sublevel and this is the music that pops up, you're guaranteed to have to deal with some foolishness. For example, sublevel 6 of the Hole of Heroes and sublevel 10 of the Dream Den. The whole level is submerged in water, save for a few tree stumps and a small strip of land with the exit. This means you have to leave all but your blue Pikmin somewhere safe and venture out to defeat enemies and collect the treasure. The problem is, due to the fact that sublevels can spawn in different designs each time you enter, you can spawn on a platform dangerously close to an enemy and get decimated before you can even react, or you can spawn somewhere that can't physically hold all your non-blues safely above water level. You see the problem? Mystic March accompanies levels like that. It's very slow and quiet, but it also features an angry horn in the background, which is your only musical indication of what you're about to be forced to deal with. It's an indicator theme, and sometimes it's the only thing that mentally prepares me to contend with levels like this. Oh, the Tightening Waiver. It's the final boss of Pikmin 2, and it has rightfully epic and dynamic battle music. The Tightening Waiver itself actually isn't a threat to you or your Pikmin. The problem is, this trigger-happy giant spider managed to pick up 4 weapons and has no problem blasting you with them. Its weapons correspond to the 4 hazards you've had to deal with. The comedy bomb emits poisonous streams, the monster pump shoots out bursts of water, the flare cannon is basically a flamethrower, and the shock therapist throws out electrified nodes. This is all important info, I promise. The Tightening Waiver theme changes depending on how many weapons the boss is holding, between 4 and 0, and which weapon it's currently using. When you start the battle, the boss is carrying all 4 weapons. The music is entirely threatening, using an orchestra to really drive home how deep in danger you are. At 3 weapons, the tone changes a little bit, but keeps the same instruments, as if to say, you may have taken one of my weapons, but I still have the upper hand here. Drop the Dweevil down to 2 weapons, and the music starts to noticeably change, adding sounds that seem to associate more with the Pikmin than with the Dweevil. This is a sign that the tide of battle is beginning to change. At just 1 weapon, the orchestrated theme is beginning to overshadow by a xylophone. When no more weapons are at the Tightening Waiver's disposal, the song is still heavily orchestrated but switches tone entirely by sounding more hopeful. But the genius of the song does not stop there. The use of those 4 weapons have their own versions too. When the Dweevil prepares a weapon for use, the song switches to a quick 3-note lead-up before changing into the weapons theme, which lasts only as long as the attack does. When using the flare cannon, the music is a screaming use of strings that sounds like all-out destruction, which fire can obviously be. The use of the shock therapist evokes a delayed danger sound, which is perfect. The Dweevil throws out the nodes, and then the nodes shoot out arcs of electricity, meaning the attack is delayed too. When the monster pump is used, a harp going up and down in notes is heard, which corresponds to the water being shot out in all directions. Finally, the comedy bomb's music is a steady progression of the strings moving up in notes, as if the level of toxicity is slowly increasing as more poison is sprayed onto the battlefield. Whew, isn't the Tightening Waiver theme a masterpiece? It's so dynamic, and y'all know how I feel about music this fluid. Alright, I think I've nerded out about Pikmin 2's soundtrack enough for one day. Thank you so much for tuning in for Soundtrack Saturday. What'd you think? Let me know down in the comments which Pikmin is your favorite. If you're new here, thanks for checking out the channel. Make sure to toss a couple Pikmin at the like button and subscribe to join the Penguin Village. And until next time, you guys. Peace.